All right, so I'm building up to getting into packing lists for your bags and things like that. But it's important to like I said in the initial video about the philosophy of what survivalism and preparedness is. It's kind of important also to understand how you configure your gear, and without kind of understanding my thinking of it and how I plan and prepare, it won't make a lot of sense. You always want to have pace plans. No plan survives first contact. You always want to have a primary, an alternate, a contingency, and an emergency. The reason is when you're planning, what you're trying to do is answer a question that hasn't been asked yet. And if you only have one plan, when you get out into the field or get into a situation, that may not be the question that was asked. So while it may be good for this one specific thing, you have to have contingencies, is basically what I'm getting at. So an example pace plan, I think is a good one, is for a primary, you're going to bug in. I think that it makes the most sense to already be where you're going to be if something happens, and stay there as long as you possibly can, because you have the ability to stockpile supplies. You have the ability to come up and establish sustainable systems, for livestock and for gardening, vegetables, and things like that. Sustainable water, procurement sources. So that's kind of a large scale, kind of long-term thing. So if you can already be where you're going to be, if anything happens, then that's great. If you're not where you're going to be, if you have a place that you plan to bug out to, a bug out location that has all those supplies and all those sustainable systems, then you still, I think, need to be prepared to stay where you primarily reside, for what could be 3 days, it could be a week, it could be a month, could be a year, it could be for the rest of the time that you have alive. You may never be able to get to your bug out location. You may have to bug in your primary residence. Just an example that off the top of my head is I may plan on, me being down in North Carolina, I may plan on leaving work, getting back here, grabbing my family, grabbing our bags, jumping in a car, and heading to the Adirondacks, or heading to the Smokies. But if, by the time I get home, if there's military checkpoints or police checkpoints, or the roads are closed, or, whatever the disaster is, if it doesn't allow for that, and that was my only plan, and I don't have any preparations here in my primary residence, I'm going to be completely reliant on handouts from the government and what I can scrounge. So even if you don't plan on staying in your primary residence, really to bug out before you need to bug out is kind of a bad idea. There may just be a natural disaster that hits the coastline here, and I have to survive here in place because I can't get out for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, or whatever, and then everything's restored back to normal. So for me to immediately decide that I'm going to go to the Adirondacks or the Smokies, run off to the mountains, doesn't make a lot of sense when I haven't figured out what the question is. I'm trying to apply an answer that may not be, appropriate for the question that's being asked, if that makes sense. But anyway, so primary, being prepared to bug in your primary residence for as long as you need to get everything ready to go on to your bug out location that has better supplies or better location, better place, more suited, for long-term survival. That's kind of should be everyone's primary plan. Then going into alternate and contingency plans, those are under the assumption that you have an alternate bug out location to go to. And this may not be your pace plan. I mean, it can be whatever it is. I'm just kind of giving you an example of a pace plan. So my alternate plan would be, a little bit best case, a little bit more best case than my contingency, but I've got a vehicle that can get me to a pre-designated bug out location that already has supplies and everything. So that's a lot better than being forced because for some reason my vehicle gets stolen, broke down, doesn't work, or the roads are closed. me having to go to that same place on foot, which would be my contingency. But if I planned on, loading up a trailer or hooking up a big trailer full of supplies and didn't have anything, as far as, throw in a go bag, like a backpack that I can use on foot, then if the vehicle doesn't work or if the roads aren't open, I can't carry a lot of those supplies. So I have to waste time either cross-loading it into a backpack, or I'm just going to have to make do and maybe bug in my primary residence when I don't really want to do that, and I'm not really set up for that. So contingency would be bug out to that location on foot. I can't get there by vehicle, or I can only get part of the way there by vehicle. An example, where I'm at now in coastal North Carolina, I want to get my family back up to upstate New York in the mountains, and it's a long way. It's 850 miles by vehicle, and it'll take me in my truck. It would take me probably I don't know, 20, 40, 50 gallons of diesel most likely. But and there's a lot of room. I can carry a lot of supplies, but that's another subject as well, as the type of vehicle you choose to bug out in. But I also have, a small Toyota that gets, over 40 miles to a gallon. So I can get up there in 25, gallons of gas. But I may get, a gallon or a tank of gas up the road, and there's no more fuel available. That's as far as I can get. So I may have to plan my routes from here. When I finally get to the point to where I'm bugging out to an alternate bug out location by vehicle, I may only make it part way. I may have to, instead of driving north to get to the Adirondacks and going through, Fredericksburg, or Richmond, Fredericksburg, DC area, Baltimore area, to get up that way. I may have to drive, use that tank of gas that I have, and the couple of cans that I have for contingency, a couple of jerry cans. I may have to actually drive west and hit the Smoky Mountains, because I know that I can't get enough fuel to get all the way, and I'm going to have to walk part way. Well, if I get to the Smoky Mountains, I can ditch the vehicle and go to, being on foot, and I can pick up the Appalachian Trail, and the Appalachian Trail will take me all the way up into upstate New York. So those are things that you have to think about and plan for. So I may be, there's no reason for me to load a vehicle down with stuff that I can't carry if I know that I can only make it to the Smokies, and then from there on I'm on foot. So it doesn't make sense to load that vehicle up, throw a trailer on it, make it less mobile, make it stick out worse. It makes more sense for me to jump in the car, which gets better gas mileage, requires less fuel, knowing that I still can't make it the entire way, and I'm going to have to go on foot. My goal now becomes, getting from here to the mountains to then have a nice marked footpath, with relatively easy terrain all the way up to New York on foot, rather than trying to walk through cities and walk roads and everything else where everybody's going to be. It's going to be congested. So something to think about. And then emergency, of course, I don't have an alternate bug out location to go to. My vehicles are not an option, so I'm bugging out on foot. Nothing but me and the family and our go bags. Nowhere to go in particular. Probably, if it was me, I would probably go to local forest, state forest, and kind of hop back and forth between there, so I can hide out in the state forest on state land, hopefully away from people, and come out of the woods when I need to resupply. But you'd be completely living off the land. But that needs to be something that's planned for. This is why you learn primitive skills and survival skills, so that worst case, I don't have anywhere to go and I don't have a vehicle to get me there, I'm just walking, you'll still be taken care of. Had you never planned for any of these, or if you only plan for one or the other, and the situation doesn't allow you to do that, and I think we can all agree that the whole concept of this preparedness scenarios are that we can't control anything except for our reaction to it, and that's why we're constantly preparing and trying to plan and think of what can happen. I think we can all agree that none of this is in our control. So to have one plan versus a pace plan is, I just think, not a good idea. and it kind of goes against, you know, my concept of survivalism and preparedness.